Everybody on YouTube, what is going on? Everybody on TikTok, what's going on? We're doing a live stream tonight, and it's going to be a fun one. We're going to go over a lot of stuff here. So, if you're watching this on repeat, for you guys on TikTok, you won't be watching it on repeat, but you can go on the YouTube and you probably should watch it because it'll be a much better production. We're going to go over how to organize evidence. And I want to say a few things before I get started on this because this is a fairly special presentation. And let me just make sure one thing here. Okay. I think we're good. We're good. Okay. So on this one, we're going to be recording this with intentional slides that go into the production. So when you're watching this, you're not going to see the slides. Okay. But if you're watching this on YouTube, there'll be a downloadable link for the slides here in just a couple hours after watching this. The other thing is I want to thank all the members on my YouTube channel. Man, you guys are just the best. There's these donations coming in. There's a lot of appreciation for people who can't afford my groups. Man, I really appreciate that. There's also somebody who left a message saying, Steve, can I talk to you? And he signed up for the YouTube membership thing. And I couldn't reply to the message. So please email me if that's you. And I know who you are. So no problem, but I could not message you back on whatever application you did on the app. I also want to say that you know, my communities are made to help men. They tactically help men. They do help men. We only work in high conflict. We only work with false allegations, parental alienation, a lot of the things that we're going to go over tonight in this live stream. You're going to hear exactly what we do. I'm going to also reference different lessons in different videos, which are really important. One that is super important, it's already linked in the YouTube live stream if you go to watch it, and that is the spearhead as well as the 5-column method. So we're going to be referencing the 5-column method a ton here so that you can learn to go over your evidence. This is going to make everything awesome in your life in a horrible situation that is not awesome, but you are going to learn how to organize and vet evidence and see what happens if I don't know what to do in my groups or somebody doesn't know what to do, how we figure it out and how we have a history of getting things done, right? So this is the best DIY do-it-yourself model for this. It's just great. Also, the Spearhead playlist, pretty important one in this, that's linked down below. And there's also a War Room playlist. Now, I think right now the War Room is only available to YouTube members and people who are a part of the Starter and Rising Man communities. But look, it's great stuff. It's great stuff. I want you guys to be able to get this. I really want you guys to be able to get this. I want to make what I am teaching here good enough for you to follow so that you can win your high conflict custody case. And that's what we do. So let's get into this. All right. We ready? We ready? We ready, TikTok? TikTok, I won't answer any questions until I'm done with this. And same with you, YouTube, but we'll get to you in a little bit. Give me about 40 minutes. All right. So what we're going to cover here is week 2 of the War Room. And the War Room is a upper tier community that I have that we work and look over your case with a fine-tooth comb so that you can win and strategize for it. Now, in this, we have the 5-column method in the first video for week 2 of the War Room, but now we need to put that into application. So if you're watching this and you don't know what the 5-column method is, please get the link down below wherever you're watching this on YouTube. If you're watching this on TikTok or somewhere else, go on YouTube and watch it. It's great. If you're not on my email list, you're shooting yourself in the foot if you want to understand how to win in high conflict custody, especially with narcissists, borderlines, parental alienation, very, very difficult cases, lots of false allegations and stuff that we're going to get into here. And what we're going to do in this 5-column method is, in order to teach this, I want to go through some specifics of cases that have already happened in my group. Now, I have a couple prepped up. We'll see how many we get through, but this will probably be a regular video style, whether we go through 1 or 2, probably not 3 in this presentation. But I want you to understand how this works because it's going to put into application these different 5 columns. So let's go over this really quick in terms of the War Room. Week 1 in the War Room, what we want to look at is our timeline, our strategy, and our positioning. So one of the things from that which was super important was basically that where you're starting at defines your entire strategy. So if you want a parental alienation strategy to win, or a false allegation strategy to get it dismissed or overturned, or whatever your situation is, it's totally different where you start. So if you have a permanent protective order, that's a very, very different situation than if it's temporary. Or if in the first case we have mom has left with the kids to another state and there's no protective order yet, and one's about to be filed and so on as we get to this story. But we want to know exactly where we're at. Now, also in week 1 in the War Room, and please, again, look at the playlist for that. And if you're interested in really going over this, in going over in my communities, it's just the best way. But if we don't know how to do something, like if we're unfamiliar and we basically say, I don't know how a judge would rule on this, what do we do? Well, we do a couple things. Obviously we use our tools in AI, but we realize that can be a yes man. And we realize that looking over case law and different, family code things, yes, that's the starting place, but it doesn't mean that that argument will work in court. The next thing that we do is we go to family court to watch if we can't watch our judge. In fact, a question that came in on my YouTube the other day was, what happens if your attorney says, don't watch your judge because your judge is going to get angry about it? I've never seen an example of that. We've seen judges question men asking why they're sitting in family court or on the Zoom as an observer, and they just say, I'm here as an observer. A judge, I've never known to my knowledge be mad about that. But here's the thing. If you can't watch your judge, or your judge is going to get mad about that, watch another judge. You need to get a baseline understanding of family court. And then the next thing you want to do is you want to interview attorneys, whether you're paying for consultations or not. But you want to interview attorneys about specific questions, not just random things. You want to sit back, watch a lot of my videos, maybe other people's videos that break down the process of family law. Understand where you're at, really understand that. Understand what you have to argue, what you have to lose, learn how to do it properly, and then hire attorneys to see if there's different strategies on how to get that. And that's literally what we do. Now, also, there's another benefit. If we don't know what to do, we can ask a wealth of different members who now have tons of experience of winning cases pro se, winning cases that I've never heard of being won before. I'm just so proud of my group in this way. And it's actually kind of sad because we had a case today come in that was a loss, and the person, just had a couple days to prepare. And so that's always a big disadvantage. But there's literally guys in his same state that have done what he's trying to do. In fact, they started off the same place he is starting out, losing, but we want to prevent that because it makes things very, very expensive and much harder and easier for parental alienation to happen. But we have just these resources that have grown again and again. So again, if we don't know how to do something, we look it up, we look at the laws, we then start watching family court, we hire attorneys, we're organized before we hire them to interview them about their experience with that judge and so on. And then if you have a community, you bounce it off of these people. This is invaluable. So super important concepts in the War Room. But let's go over these 5 columns. So the 5 columns basic video, hopefully you've already watched. It's awesome. It's going to tell you exactly what that is. Okay, so in that, what we want is column 1 is the event, and there's no filter of that. So the event, the lie, what's happening, what you're angry about. Column 2 is going to be, how is this relevant in custody? What laws protect it? What laws is it breaking? What statutes does it violate, and so on. Column 3 is the proof. And remember, proof doesn't necessarily mean evidence yet. We want to vet that. We want to turn all of this into a machine of evidence. And then column 4 is the judge's likely response or other cases that have been ruled on in that way. And column 5 is their behavioral pattern. What spawned this? What are your reactions to it? What are their reactions to it? So your ex, if she is a narcissist or borderline, we want to be able to predict that pattern. And that's going to be a huge value as it comes into play. But we're also going to see here, it's going to massively affect strategy. So in week 2 and also in week 3 of our War Room, we want to have about 10 to 20 things in that column 1, and then at least 3 to 5 totally vetted and scored. So all 5 columns filled out if that's possible. And this can be difficult because when we're going through evidence of our case, it can re-traumatize us. It's not the most motivating thing to look through. And, it really halts men. This is really important to understand because everybody thinks that they can go through a high conflict custody battle and they just have what it takes to go through it. This is a big problem. Like finding out the real meat of evidence, the parts of evidence that work and can be argued in your case, it can be very mentally taxing. Another reason why a support system is really important. And then what we want to do is we want to look at any errors, any problems with perspective. This is very easy to do when we're in a high conflict custody battle. We're under huge amounts of duress. We want to look at ways it could backfire. We want to pressure test it. What are the different arguments? If we submit this evidence, how could they get it kicked out, or how could they argue it in certain ways? And then we also want to spot patterns that are going to be useful in our case later. So then we also want to score it. Now, if we're doing this alone, and when you look at the accompanying PDFs to this and so on, you're going to see a scoring system. Now, if you're in my groups, I don't care so much about the scoring system because we're going to do that as a group. But in order for you to do this alone, you could rank these different things. Okay, so when you look at column 1 and you go like, this is this event that has happened. Is this something that's relevant in custody? What's the score of it? And usually, 0 to 3 or something like that is good enough. You look at your proof. Is this proof going to work as evidence? Is it something that's enforceable? What's the procedural path? What is the judge going to think? So when you're going through columns 2, 3, 4, you want to be able to give some sort of marking next to it is some sort of ranking. Is this going to impact the child? And the pattern that it has in that 5th column, is this a consistent pattern that we can predict under high stress moments that she's under, and how do we act within it and so on? And we want to score those things like, how relevant is this? Now, obviously, the higher the score, the more relevant of a piece of evidence it will be. And when we're looking at spearheading our case, meaning we get that one piece of evidence, we get that one lie that the courts can't ignore and they start to pay attention to, then we can start introducing all the other smaller things that could be big deals. All right. So let's go into this case example of where this works out. So let me break down the situation. And again, this comes from our group. We have only super high conflict things with kidnappings and parental alienation. I want to break down how this works out. Okay. So the ex moves out of state. Let's say it starts out in Washington state. And in the real story of this wasn't in Washington state. Keeping it anonymous. So let's say she goes from Washington state to California state. And she takes the child there, starts a job, and she moves in with her mom, or a parent is there, enrolls the kid in school, and then files for custody in California. Now, a dad in this situation is most likely already having problems. He's stressed out. He freaks out. He has a lawyer in Washington state. Now he's got to talk to a lawyer in California. He doesn't know what to do. He's blindsided by this, knows nothing about family law, knows nothing about these crazy court systems, and he's got to bear down and think. So this is where so many men start in these situations. An emergency happens and you can't think. Okay, so as she files, the dad knows he now has to start to respond. He starts looking at different things online, or maybe Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini or one of the different AI models tells him, okay, this is a jurisdiction issue. Here's the different documentation. He gets some confidence with that, but then he goes down to the county clerk's office and it's all confusing. They say they can't give legal advice, and it's a spinning thing, right? Spinning thing. And it was at this time he actually came to our group, and very, very, very resourceful man. Okay, so he eventually realizes that there's some arguments to bring back jurisdiction to Washington state. And it's been under 6 months, and he realizes there's a UCC JEA conference that is allowed, or it states jurisdiction in these types of situations. And because it's within 6 months, this becomes his argument. Now, I'll tell you how this eventually plays out here in a little bit, but there's a lot of complicated things moving. And as he starts to realize he has to fight this in California to first get jurisdiction back into Washington state, Then she starts making false allegations, domestic violence, all these different things, which is super problematic in Washington state, or I'm sorry, in California state, because domestic violence restraining orders could totally destroy your case. If we keep going on with other examples, you're going to find out why. But it's a really big deal in California, and this is why false allegations need to be fought well. So let's go to column one. So if we look at the 5-column model, column one, we're supposed to write what? And we could keep this raw. This in the instructions of column one, it should just be put it all there, paint on the wall. It doesn't need to make sense. It doesn't need to be pretty. We need to get everything out, especially if we're working with a group. They're going to help us vet through this, because you got to dump, you got to vent. It's highly emotional. This is the column to do it in. The rest, not so much. So here we have, okay, child moves out of state without notice, filed for custody in another state, started school, okay? She claims to have lived in that state the whole time. She's with her family members, her mother. The father is, trying to distance parent, losing his rights, totally cut out. There's alienation beginning. So there's new timelines now of the child in school, the child having a relationship outside of state. And there's a possibility where it could go into default because he doesn't know what to do. Now, what default is he doesn't show up. So because he doesn't show up, there's nothing filed back. He doesn't know how to argue it. Then all of a sudden, the judge says, hey, they didn't show up. I'm going to make a reactive ruling that's going to last a really long time and be hard to reverse. And in this case, would get jurisdiction in California. So he's thinking, man, do I have to move there? There's emotional panic, there's urgency, all that sort of stuff. So that's all of column one, right? You are allowed to be ugly to put the battlefield on paper in column one. But column two, we want to start going, how does this affect custody? Now, if we look at the 5-column method and the instructions in it, we have a set of questions to ask. And again, if you haven't watched that video, please watch it. It's going to help you with all of this. But here, we could start to orchestrate some other questions. When we have a good column one, we can start putting things into place, right? We can start saying, okay, does this move affect jurisdiction? Yes. Yeah, definitely. Okay, does this affect which court controls custody orders? Yeah, that's a pretty big deal. Does this affect the home state status? Does it give a venue advantage? Absolutely. Is it something that could be enforceable? Like, would a state enforce it? And what state would enforce it? And the answer to that is yes, but we got to do a little bit more digging. Does it affect stability, different continuity factors? Yes. Okay. Does it affect parenting time and access? Okay. Now, those are all the things of what would be relevant to custody, which is our column two. And at first, we're super emotional about things. We're angry about things. Like, she did this. She's taking away my kid. These are thoughts of betrayal. These are thoughts of just what a horrible person she is. She's out to get me, all these different things. But it takes that narrative and it turns it into something that's a little bit more tangible, okay? So it now can have legal relevance, and the emotional chaos and the problems from the battlefield can go in there. But then we have to get to column three. Column 3 and 4 are really, really important here. So column 3 is, we need to start going, what is this? And how can I start proving evidence that's important to me? Now, remember, if we go back to the other War Room videos in week 1, and we talked about this a little bit earlier, where are we at right now? Where are we at? Where are we starting? What's going on? What's the situation? I want to know exactly where we're at. I'm in Washington. My child and mother with her family are in California, and I need to argue jurisdiction. I need to start researching these things. I need to start talking to attorneys. I need to start watching family court. I need to start looking at different possibilities of this. Now, I'm going to tell you this right now. One of the things in family court is we always get our hopes up. We go, man, I got this. Some lawyer told me this and we're good. You need to like double, triple check everything. You really need to. You can never be too confident for family court. Never. never, 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 never. Okay, so even if I go in for something, I am not confident, right? Because everything has to be double checked. Everything has to be there. This is how you win in situations that are agreed upon to most people are pretty impossible. This is how we do the impossible. So it's real important to go back to that idea. Where am I at and what's the strategy from there? Now, within this, he was able to get, okay, there's ways to argue jurisdiction. And I have a 6-month window to do it, and I need to do it now. Okay, so what are some forms of proof in that column 3 that I could prove that she and my child and myself were living in Washington State? And things were established there. Okay, so he finds some electric bills. He finds some different documents that have to do with court outside of this case. He finds service records. He has school records from the child or attempting to be enrolled there. Also, medical records of the child seeing a doctor. Now, all of this needs to fit within a 6-month window so that he can prove, actually, let me backtrack. All this needs to fit to make the argument that that child was there for 6 months and has not been in the new state for 6 months. This is pivotal, right? So when a lot of people argue jurisdiction and they argue it, they get pretty interpretive with things. So you want to be able to get this argument right. In fact, this actually moves into what we're going to talk about in column 4, but we want to get it in the best possible argument for jurisdiction. You want that 6-month window there. You could do it outside of it technically, but it's a weaker argument. So he's got to act now, right? He's got to make a move now. Now, part of this is also understanding that in column 4, we're going to look at what do judges rule on in this. Now, in this case, had no idea about his judge. Couldn't research much, couldn't get in there, couldn't watch the courtroom. Okay. And then also, if you're in Washington State, you're dealing with commissioners too, usually, and you may not see a judge right away. So it adds another curveball to all those different things. And so he's got to start looking at what would judges likely rule on when we have a UCC JEA situation where that's presented. And that's where the 6 months come into play. When we have that jurisdiction conference, what is the best possible argument for that? Okay. Now, what are timelines that are going to be credible? What are pieces of evidence that judges are going to care about towards that? And all this is happening when he has no clue about any of this, right? There's no clue about anything to do with custody, laws, his child's left, parental alienation, whole 9 yards happening, can't talk to his child. And, it's horrible. So he's really got to research what do judges rule upon in this, especially in Washington State, and what is a California judge going to respond to? Okay, these are things to look up. These are things to ask about. These are things to look towards. And if he misses some sort of deadline and ends up in default, he needs to know he's really, really screwed. If jurisdiction ends up in California, it's going to be really hard to get out of there. It's going to be really hard to prove that. So even if he proves that for 6 months the child was there and mom moved and it's a kidnapping situation and so on, but she's been there for 6 months or maybe longer and the child started school, that's a harder argument to make. There's less probability. So we want things to move quickly, okay? So this is really important. We have to study these things. Family law is hard. It's unfair. Nobody's on your side. The whole system will eat you alive. Okay, we get it. So we want to up our game as much as possible. This is why I try and make these videos for you guys to follow. Now, in column 5, we want to do 2 things. And this is where column 5 gets really cool, especially in this situation. So we want to look at, okay, what's her pattern? Why did she do this? We have a child with this person. We probably had a relationship. Maybe you were married, maybe you weren't. But what is their pattern? What do they continuously repeat? Why do they emotionally react? Why is it that they do extreme things like move out of state? So we want to look at all of that. We also want to look at our pattern. And this is hard to do. Like, how do I react? How do I blame myself? And this is where we get into things that may not seem legal, like they don't have to, they're legal, but they don't have to do with our legal case. And we need to examine them. What is the behavior? What is my behavior? And how is my behavior somehow contributing to this and this sort of thing? This is really important because it's going to help with strategy, okay? Because this behavior is going to repeat over and over again. And if you can put that in a court system to your advantage, it's going to expose all of the different lies. Really, really important, okay? So we want to put all of that in there. Now, let me tell you, if we were to rank this, it's pretty high. Okay, so when this gentleman comes to me and he's got these 5 columns listed out, and he says, here's what happened. Here's how it affects custody. Here's my proof. I have these different things. And that, in this situation, we were wondering, here's what judges normally respond to. And then here's her patterns. Here's her behavioral patterns. And here's my behavioral patterns. The one missing thing to vet this was, man, okay, you got to get started in California. I know you can't afford another attorney. I mean, who can, right? We're all in that situation. You have to take your Washington state attorney, and you have to get all evidence as presentable as possible to show a timeline of them being in Washington and of them moving to California. It's less about your not having your permission, and it's more about the time there. And we need to start arguing for jurisdiction in Washington state and then presenting that to California. And so this is a process we had to double check, ask about, go over and over again. But we also did need to start out in California because we didn't want to end up in any defaults. Okay. So in this, we were like, okay, it's a very, very good argument. It's a very solid argument. There's a track record of this argument being made in different courts. And what happens is jurisdiction does get set into Washington state. She's forced to move back. The attempts at protective orders were in the state of California. They were dismissed as soon as it got out of the courts, which is lucky, may not always happen. And then the whole process starts over in Washington. And in Washington, here's what's even better, okay? Now, remember, we are looking at the pattern. Within this, there were deadlines she missed. There were different areas that she lied, but, the case got thrown out, so it didn't really matter. And we got to see, okay, wait a minute. She did not show up for one of the hearings. Okay, so she was irresponsible. That's a flag. If that's going to happen again, we want to know. We want to start moving forward in our court case and seeing that this sort of neglect and negligence may happen. Now, I know you may not be in that situation, but if that is your situation, you want to flag it. You want to know what she's going to lie about, even though it was dismissed. It was in a case, it was in domestic violence, restraining order sort of thing. What was being lied about? Why was it being lied about? What triggered those lies? What actions from him may have activated those lies? Now, also, we have to look at, how did he respond to that? What did that make him think? How did he start to take the wind out of his sails of going, man, I can't see my child. Oh my God, the panic and the fear. Now, therapeutically, we want to be able to contain and manage that, but we want to understand that these things are going to happen again in the case. Okay, so if they happen again in a case, could he have different actions that he's possible of taking? When you panic about your child, that could be hard. How can we start to structure that in so that some of these poor behaviors by the mother could be seen within the courts? And so oftentimes you hear us talk about different things like third parties and so on, or other elements of the court where there could be a record of different types of behaviors that may not be so good. And so this is really important and really rich to look at. Now, as I said, I want to continue to go over multiple cases that we have in these situations, and we have no shortage of them. There's a ton of them where more men win and lose. But tonight, I'm going to pause it because I want to open it up for some of the questions that we have here. And I just want to hammer in that we want to be tactical about this. So let me tell you what this would look like if it came to our group. If it came to our group and we're going through this, and if you're watching this and you don't have a group, this is what you need to form. When you have all of your what's, all of your things, when you have your column 1, that can just be put there, right? Column 1, it's there, and it may even take like 4 or 5 pages just for that column. Then we need to truly vet, how does this fit custody? Every single man that comes to me, even guys in my upper tier groups who hear this, who've watched my videos, who study this stuff, who we go over it on live calls, will be skewed on this. How does this affect custody? What are the statutes? What are the laws? All these different things, right? This will not be accurate. Almost always, it will be exaggerated, and they're trying to make something out of nothing with it. Okay. So, real important. And so that's normal. Don't feel bad about that. It's not because you're a bad person, it's because you're under high stress, highly emotional. It involves your kids, and you also don't know about family law. So many men think when they get these columns wrong that they did something that they should have been able to reframe in their minds or something like that. Doesn't happen. I've never seen that actually happen. I've never seen a man be so mentally strong, or whatever the myth you want to believe of alphaness, to be able to get that right. There's always something wrong with it, and usually a lot. When we get to the proof section, this is also something that is going to be problematic, but I want it all there. When we look at that proof, there needs to be what you think the proof is. How would we get it? Do you have it? Do you have access to it? Would we have to subpoena stuff? All of that. Okay. That's going to be also highly emotional and all over the map. When we look at judges, there's a lot of assumptions of what people think about judges, whether they think they're corrupt and bad, so they don't need to think about them. Bad idea. Whether they're corrupt and bad idea. That means you have no tactic there. You've robbed yourself from any sort of strategy. Okay. You could also think that a judge would see that she's lying, or a judge would see that you care about your child, or something like this. No. How do judges rule on this? Study it. Study courtrooms. Ask attorneys who've been with that judge. This is how you would know the best probable way, right? And if you cannot watch your judge, you watch other judges. Because guess what? All these arguments of what have happened before. But what hasn't happened a lot of, and this is where things get screwed up, this is where lawyers don't know, where third parties don't know, and judges don't know, is because so many people give up on their case that they don't learn how to fight it. So these things like parental alienation or false allegations, there's not a lot of arguments going in front of that judge, and people give up. People, I don't want to say accept false rulings and so on. They don't accept it, but they didn't properly argue it and they didn't know. I started out that way. I didn't know. Okay. I get it. It's not fair. It's not right. But I learned how. And I hate this because it's so rare that men learn how. So all of these different columns, men are going to screw up. How do you not screw it up? In my groups, we have guys that win, and guys that have won. Like there's people at Nick. Nobody that I've ever heard of has done some of these things. Like it's really awesome. Like I may have helped support them, but they did the impossible thing. There's multiple guys who've done that, and they'll give certain advice or strategy, or say what may work or may not. This doesn't work, or this piece of evidence is wrong, or that doesn't argue the statute or the best interest factors or something like this. And people will be so emotional about structuring their case that they argue back. And I get how hard that is. So when we're in this, it's very emotional. Okay, because it involves your kids, and it's super high conflict, and the courts are unfair. This is so hard to vet this properly, to get to that point where we could take the client in this situation and say, man, get the bills, be able to get whatever medical records, even though they could be argued, and that messes up the timeline, because one doctor's appointment does not prove 6 months of residency. And actually, he was able to be creative enough to get one of the utility bills that did show that timeline. I think that was the only thing. And then it kind of pieced everything else together. Man, that is a risk. But he was able to do that. But to focus on that is very difficult, because in that moment, he's probably thinking, but she lied about this, and then she does this, and she has these extracurricular activities, and her character's bad, and all this different stuff. And that will ruin your case. In fact, the second case that I had pulled up, which we're going to save for another night, it shows that. It shows how a man was in an extremely hard position, extremely hard, very hard to argue out of. Where he was starting is not easy to get out of. But in that, he also did what so many men do, is sabotage their cases, because it's so difficult to not bring in all that extra crap. You want everything in your case to be tight. It doesn't need to make sense to you ever. It doesn't even need to make the argument to anybody else in the entire world except the judge, the commissioner, the magistrate, whoever you're arguing in front of. That is it. So what this 5-column method is meant to do, and how we're going to vet it, or if you go through the process without people and rank it yourself, is to have the best probability for working in court. So remember, family court is hard. You can do it. There are examples of men winning it. It is not easy. It has less to do with your previous accomplishments and more to do with how you can regulate yourself. And if you're following the different systems that I put out, doing exactly that. If you do these things and they don't work for you, and you comment on my videos saying, I did all of that and it didn't work, one, I doubt it. And two, that's always the risk, man. You can do everything right in family court and it can still lose. But that is what it's worth. And the more you can learn how to do, the less you're going to be reliant on lawyers who could screw you over. It'll make you better at working with lawyers. And the more you could weed out any biases within the system. So there's always an excuse to lose. There's always enough pain to give up. But we're not doing that. All right. Thanks for watching. Again, this is a part of a series. Check out the other videos attached to it, and let's keep learning. Good stuff. All right, folks. Enough with the presentation. Like I said, I wanted to go into a couple different examples, but as I figured, there would only be time for one. Currently, YouTube, my beautiful YouTubers, there are no questions written in on YouTube, but that's fine. Let's check out what we got with TikTok. And let's put on the glasses. Oh, hey, man. I say that, and my buddy punches in on YouTube, and man, he had a rough couple days. Okay, it's about organizing your paperwork and evidence well, demeanor, and bring child focus. Absolutely, this is the thing. So hold on one second. So we have a comment here on TikTok about evidence and organizing it. And if there was some baseline things you needed to know about evidence, it would be this. So it's about organizing your paperwork and evidence very well, checking your demeanor, and bringing things child-focused. Now, we hear this all the time, but we get distracted from that. Anybody that has been in family court battles for a long time, they get this. And it's easier said than done. It's really, really, really difficult, but you need to start there. Everything is for the child. It's not about your narcissistic ex. It's not about the betrayal. It's not about the cheating. It's not about any of this. It is only about what can benefit the child in custody. So in divorce, there could be other factors that go into it. Really important. And these are things that I will tell you, I try and make systems and different ways for you to implement strategy yourself so that you can fit that narrative. Okay? So let's look at this. Man, well, thank you. Thank you, Life with Love, for this. There's so many comments. Man, so you watched a lot of my videos. Awesome. And went in pro se. Wow. You're a beast. Good stuff. Okay, Steve, thank you for being there when nobody was. Man, awesome. Man, all of you guys on here, you're passed with your cases, and that's what it sounds like. Well, good stuff. Wow. Wow. I want to screenshot this. This is so cool. So somebody on TikTok is writing in. So 2 people are writing in that they followed my stuff and it was helpful, which is really cool to hear. And that's the ideal. Of course, I'm here with a business and, have this whole infrastructure to sell and everything that comes out in the business that we learn from, even the story that we heard about here. And I was watching videos from just a year ago, and there's so much more that we have. there's more success in the group. There's more knowledge that we have. There's things more streamlined. But hearing this from this guy, I'll keep you anonymous, but basically saying that he went through all of this, living in his car and listening to some of the different videos that I had. And I've had that same experience, I'm assuming not seeing your child and being able to get through it. He says he's 150% better now. That is the ideal. That is so awesome that our group fighting tooth and nail for our cases with whatever resources that we can get. And again, like I was saying in the war room, if we can't find what works, we figure out how to do it ourselves. And we hold a standard of not just it sounding cool or being somebody knowledgeable about something. Like, we don't care about any of that. Does it work? Will it move our case forward? And this guy was able to do well. Dare I ever say that somebody won, because you never really win, but doing good and getting some wins. And then a lady writing in who really knows a lot about pro se stuff and said, I learned so much from watching you going through it last year. It helps me a lot as pro se. Badass. You guys are heroes, man. Heroes. And this is another thing too. Like, it's so difficult for me. I really want to make content for everybody, make content for women. And like any parent should have this. Most of my stuff is guy focused. I'm such a good men's coach. There's so much experience with this. In fact, after this on my other channel, I'm going to do a live stream on a different YouTube channel, and it won't be on TikTok because my TikTok account for that one doesn't have live stream access. It has to do with men's stuff, and it's such a big thing. So I hope moms can take this and get some wins out of it. Please know that. Please know that. Anybody should watch this. Now, I will also say, when it gets to arguing things with family court, men and women are different. There's going to be different perspectives. There's different pains. When women get their kids taken away, it's really, really horrible. And it's a harder argument to get them back. But it's a different argument. And so men, it's really easy for it to happen. And it will happen to more. And it's also hard to get back. But they're two different arguments, and they need to start from two different places. So that's real important. Then, of course, state and county stuff. Okay, so let's look at that. Considering about my case, had 50-50 for 3.5 years, going into mediation number 2 and the DVRO hearing 16 months later. Should I use the plain step-up method? Yeah, so here's the thing. If there's we know each other and all that sort of stuff, and I want to, of course, keep you anonymous in this, but when we're in certain states and we have domestic violence restraining orders, if CPS finds them unfounded, but if a judge rules on it, it's going to make things much, much harder to get certain aspects of custody. In other states, that may not be the case, but actually in any state, it would be fair, of course, to get 50-50, but in any state, you're gonna have much more success stepping up through the process. So working with the moderators and facilitators of supervised stuff, which is horrible, and they're kind of weak third parties. Like, they could work against you in a lot of ways, but they can't work for you in a lot of ways. And then, working with whatever GALs or family therapists, reunification therapists, and so on. But you want to be able to step it up, because that's going to be most probable for a judge to move quickly. As unfair as that sounds and all that sort of different stuff, when we look at the strategies of where am I at now and how do I get to the custody I deserve, what's everything in between, wouldn't it be great if judges just said, hey, yeah, we made a mistake, here's 50-50. But that doesn't happen. So I get that that's unfair. I get that there's stuff that a lot of people argue. This gentleman writing this does not think this, but like of the Constitution being violated and so on. Totally. Great. Man, you know what? Start with what works. Start with the highest probability to move this forward, because if you don't move it forward, what happens? You waste time. Another 3 months goes by. The status quo becomes greater of you being separated from your child, and you want to get what works in terms of custody as fast as possible. As fast as possible, right? Move it along, okay? So a big thing. Nobody likes hearing that. but you all want to hear the thing that makes you lose. And that's what happens. It's really screwed up. The false narrative of how dads win in custody. So, man, try and find out what works. Okay. Man, some back and forth. Keep it clean on here on TikTok. So, moms and dads on TikTok, here's another thing that comes out in this. When you're going through this, you're going to go through so much hatred. And you're going to go through so much anger. You're going to be wronged in the worst ways. You will absolutely be wronged. And there will be all sorts of reasons why that anger is justified. Okay, so anger is necessary. It's important. But if we look at things of my ex screwed me over, and I have 600 examples of how women screw over men, if I take the decision that I'm going to then hate women for it, or if you're a woman in this situation, you hate men for it, you build a life of hopelessness. There's no solution in there. And I don't give a shit about the logic in it. Like, I will readily say nobody has more experience than me of hearing horrific cases of women screwing over men in child custody. Nobody, right? And on our calls, when we're going through that, we can be really angry about it. It's totally okay to say, man, effing women or something like this, right? Because you have to, in that moment, you're going to feel that. You're not being honest with the situation. But you also have to realize that if you accept that F women, all women are evil, they're predisposed for evil, and then you have the smartest choice and evidence backing of that because you watched a bunch of red pill or manosphere stuff, that it is a proven fact where now you've listened to the winning online argument of why women suck, that you can adopt that idea. You're actually adopting an idea that you call logic that is hopeless. Like you can get no satisfaction from women. And if you were to actually look, I always love it because these arguments are all about like how smart and societies or whatever. And you actually don't need to go too far to disprove these things. So one, you can go to other male-dominated cultures of countries that are organized and functioning and countries that are disorganized and dysfunctional. And you see that these things work and don't work in some pretty crazy ways. If you want to get male power, go and fucking get it. That's what I would say to the red. Like, I've never understood this. I've never gotten this from it, right? Like, if you want male power, what's stopping you? I get it. The court system's stopping you. I get it. Your job is stopping you, but go somewhere else and get it. You can get it. You can get it, man. It's like, I went to jail for false allegations, which is horrible. I lost my civil liberties. Okay, I have a lot to complain about. That was later on admitted to be a mistake. This was all not necessary. Like, I have a lot to be mad about. And there's more, right? Like with a lot of the men's stuff, they talk about addicts and whatever. I have a huge history of addiction. I've been clean for a long time. Vets and PTSD, I'm not a vet. I don't want to say that, but long history of PTSD. Horrible stuff. So when we talk about the male victimhood, I've ticked a lot of boxes in extreme ways. And they were ways that could benefit me. In all of that, I always knew I could find male power. I could find what is good about being a man, whatever that means. So a lot of the red pill stuff, it's like money, sex, power, status. Never a problem for me. Never a problem of having the shit beat out of me in horrible ways that are only in our society and culture and in modern culture. Why was I able to find it? Okay. And so the lie of what that's supposed to make me, I'm a drug addict. I'm homeless as being a drug addict. I've gotten infections and the shit beat out of me on the street. I've had horrible assaults of everything you can imagine. And what those things tell you is that you have to be that way. You're destined to be that way. When you get screwed in family court, it tells you that there's no justice in America or wherever you're at. And dude, you have an argument. But as an absolute, or as that women are evil, it gets you nowhere. It's actually not true if you go and look in other places, but everybody convinces themselves that's there. So I just want to tell you this another thing. I rant on this a lot and should probably stop, but I'm sticking up for my fans on TikTok. When you look at solutions for what men's improvement, the manosphere, the red pill, the black pill, whoever, whatever podcast is out there, and you look at what they complain about, men being lonely, men being depressed, men having higher suicide rates, men having higher addiction rates, men having a sexless life, not being chosen, men being screwed over by divorce and custody. What's so ironic about that, all of those things have been huge factors in my life. Huge, huge. And none of them, I thought, forced me to be a victim. Now, I felt that way at times, and it's a really long story for all of them, but that was for real my situation. But what's even worse about this? Every single one of those things, if you look at any of those people talking about that, none have found a solution for it. And I am emphatic that if you spent 2 years studying family law, going to court, you could figure out ways for men to win. The impossible thing for people in my groups that I talked to yesterday that was giving advice on my calls, there's nobody that I've ever met in the United States, and even lawyers are surprised at what he did in family law. And he did it pro se. And this guy is helping guys in my groups who come on. Like, this is over and over again. And there are tragic stories within my groups of these things happening. But why hasn't any of those people figured it out? You know where I got the Watch Family Court thing? Probably one of the most valuable, simple, free tools you could do, Watch Family Court. You know where I got that? I've never liked the people in the red pill. So guys in my group, would they get divorced, they go, man, I found this amazing philosophy. I say, man, you watch this guy, this famous red pill dude. And he says, if you ever want to see how unfair court is, go in and sit and watch Family Court. It's for free. And I sat there thinking, and I go, that's so stupid. This is why I think a lot of these guys are stupid, and they may not be totally dumb, right? But I just thought, I learned everything from watching Family Court. Like when I just went to regular court, like if I had to go for a business lawsuit or go testify, I got so much out of watching it. Why would he say that? That's so dumb. I'm going to make it a point to start saying in my videos and in my calls to make it a priority to go and watch Family Court. This dude is talking about my tragedies, which were worse than his. Like, I think he was married and got divorced and then had a girlfriend that sucked. And this convinced him. I had like way more, right? Like I went to jail and I've had many, many girlfriends and dated crazy people because of issues with me, right? But I'm sitting there going, wow, this guy is using men's pain as an argument to continue to be angry about it when he just talked about the free, simple solution. But he doesn't want to help people. He wants to get popular, And I'll say this to anybody who says, you can't watch your Judge and Family Court. That's fine. Go watch other courts. And like some of the guys in my groups that have done impossible things, they just get beaten up so bad. They're like, on Friday, I'm going to watch an hour of Family Court just to see if I hear anything new. Dude, it's not fun. It's not great. But in order to teach better and understand things better, that's what I do. If you know my story, I am not a lawyer. I'm a dude who got screwed over. I'm a freaking drug addict that got clean 17 years ago and had no life skills to do these things. There's nothing. And then my clients started having these problems. So I was like, well, let me try and figure it out. I'd know, you you would totally bet against me in this, which is the irony. Like, I am really average. And the irony is everybody who's so freaking smart didn't do this. Comes to vets and PTSD, when it comes to the presentation that I'm going to do later, it's the same pattern. It's a totally different thing. So on my other channel, just a little thing if you want to watch it. It's on a different YouTube, but if you're a follower, maybe you know. So I'm going to talk about trauma, addiction, PTSD, and plant medicine and psychedelic therapies. So you may not know this, but I've worked within that industry for a decent amount of time. I've worked with addicts for a long time. And then since 2018, I've worked with these people. And there's a whole bunch of BS in it. A whole bunch. And the answer is real simple. Very hard, in a lot of consequences and death and horrible things around it. But within that whole thing, same pattern. Okay, there's something that is working. That is working. That's always worked with addiction. That's always worked with trauma. It's not easy and it's lower percentage, but there's a century of things working. So generations of how these things work. Now, there's still the aspects of therapists, untrained, psychologists untrained. There's pharmaceuticals that could cause problems. They could be good too. There's good and bad. It's not just so simple and stupid and reactionary. And then there's this plant medicine stuff that's all the rage. Everybody talks about it. And somehow I was screwed up enough to start finding out about it in like 2012. There's actually a podcast with me talking about it with my good friend who could also say a lot about my life, but he's one of my best friends and one of the best people I ever meet. His name's Eric Everhart, or his name's Mitch Hartwell, but Eric Everhart's his screen name. So he works in the he's retired in the adult entertainment industry, but Eric is an amazing human being, one of the best people you could ever wish to meet. And so we're talking about plant medicine stuff and how it could work. And it's like, what happened with me is I watched so many addicts die, so many people with complicated problems, complex PTSD. In fact, in 2013, my first close friend and somebody that it's a horrible thing, and probably one of the reasons why I do what I do is he passed away. The first time I had somebody beg me for their life and then show up and they were dead. So that was a message I saved for a while. But one of the last things he also said to me was like, man, just keep doing this stuff. Keep doing this. You're really good at it, like at helping guys. Anyway, long story short, there was such a risk with plant medicine and psychedelics when it came to recovery. You could die. That was not his story, but you could die. But I remembered also when I tried to get sober way back when in like 1993 or something like that. I really tried in 1991, but in 1993, I made a run at it. I was 17, whatever year that was. And back then it was getting like depression medication or Prozac or Zoloft, and this would make you relapse and die. And I eventually thought, with things like psychedelics or new forms of therapy, there would be something that worked that calmed all the hysteria and bullshit down. And this is what's happening. But here's the fucking problem, man. There are solutions of multiple forms of recovery for PTSD, for addiction, for all these different things, for trauma. And there could be different plant medicines, not just one, that work for those situations, but they need to work with modern therapies as well. And everybody makes it an either or. Like 6 years ago, when I really was like going, I'm going to make content about this, then I stopped. But I decided I'll probably make it again, is that everybody was either or. You're into the new forms of therapy because they denounce the old. And then if you're into the old ones, you can't do the new stuff because they're crazy. And they're coming together. There's people making it come together. It's better than it was 6 or 7 years ago. But still, like the amount of stuff online, it's bullshit. When I hear people talk about ibogaine or iboga, man, it's not true. And it's something that can help. It can definitely help. And we should know about it. But it needs other things with it. And there's a lot of protocols to it. There's a bigger failure rate than anybody knows. And so it's like man, we have all this stuff with vets, PTSD addicts that these industries or these, well, industries and cultural phenomenons of the manosphere talk about. They don't fucking help these people. They use your pain, your tragedy to get popular and to stay angry. So back to this whole thing, when you say women suck because you're a man and you got screwed over in the courtroom or whatever, at some point we have to come down from that. You can be angry. I want you to be angry. But if we buy in to this reactive mentality and we don't look at the huge personal process within this, we create horrible things in lies, and they're terrible. And when you get into what is happening in the family court system, it is disgusting and disturbing what happens to mainly men, but also women. It's disgusting. It's disgusting. When you get into PTSD treatments for vets, there's stuff that works and it may not be complete. And there's other stuff that works and none of them come together. And then it creates these side branches of bullshit where there's retreats that are supposed to help that don't, that serve false hope. A lot of stuff, when you get into different plant medicine stuff, there's a huge ethical boundary which just goes out the window. Like if you go to the U.S. Embassy website for Peru, it actually says, like, if you're coming here to do ayahuasca or do combo and things which I think are good, can be helpful. But if you're coming here for this, there are deaths, murders, assaults, and sexual assaults regularly that happen to U.S. citizens when you go there. And that's true. That does happen. But let's not talk about it. Let's just let, people randomly do stuff and who are in pain, who are traumatized, who are desperate for help, just like in family court, and are willing to go for anything, and have people lie to them about it. And in the US or in Europe or wherever this is talked about, we're like, oh, we don't want to say those stories because it'll take a step backwards for psychedelic therapies. Let's just lie to everybody and let people get sexually assaulted and robbed or come back mentally disabled after these experiences, who are desperate seeking for help. Let's just lie to them so it could all work. That is the same thing happening in family court, same thing happening to addicts, same thing happening in so many different situations. But whenever I talk about the general stuff, nobody gives a shit. You guys like the specifics. Show me family court. Stay that. Show me whatever, addiction stuff. Show me dating stuff on doing things the right way, and don't blur the lines. Anyway, I should stop because I have to prepare this other live stream, and I'll probably be on in 30 minutes or 45 minutes after this. Thank you guys a lot. I really appreciate you guys, especially on YouTube. Like, people are donating, and that's just so special. You don't have to. It's just the coolest thing. And you guys on TikTok, I haven't done a live stream in a while discussing family court and trauma recovery. Share your experience. Man, seriously, family court, it's a trauma in itself, like sustained pain that doesn't stop. Later, dudes. Thanks for showing up. I'll be live on my other YouTube channel in a little bit. If you don't know it, Google it. You guys on YouTube, what's up? I'm going to go and do that thing, but if there's any questions here, I can stay on. Man, super cool. Anyway, guys, I'm going to go. If you're on my email list, for people in my paid groups only, because I don't want to spam the list, I'll send a video out for the PTSD and plant medicine thing if you're interested. If that's not your thing, don't worry about it. Like anything that helps people is good. I'm on that side. I'm not on the side of having a title of anything. which can be tough because sometimes that means I need to say I'm wrong. Screw that. Screw that. All right, guys. I'll see you hopefully in a few minutes or an hour or something like that. And if not, sleep well. Good night.